will be moderated by Samantha Lawati. Samantha, are you ready?
Yes, Dibadi, I'm ready here. Okay. Do we have Siddharth sir?
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have Salaka Joshi, ma'am?
Yeah, I'm here. Hello.
And hello, ma'am. Do we have Sangrola sir here? Prem Sangrola sir? I think he is here. I think he will join us. Dilnawaz, are we ready for the Facebook Live? We'll wait for just a minute so that we could go Facebook Live. Thank you for waiting for so long and coming on time.
Hi, Shamana. This is Prem. I'm here.
Namaste, sir. Thank you so much for coming on time.
Samana ji, suru garda huncha.
Okay. Namaskar and welcome everyone to the third session of WINEG 2020. My name is Samana Laoti and I'm pursuing my bachelor's in business administration from Sankardev campus. I'm in my final semester. That I am working as a project lead in political literacy for women. I am also a founding member there. I'm also an induction committee member in Society of Nepali Women in Economics on the organizing team of WINEG 2020. I am honored to be given this chance to moderate this. Today, in this session, we aim to look into the current standing of Nepali women in banking and finance. Further, we're also looking at how financial institutions are further trying to make financial services more accessible to women, especially at the grassroots level. We're also looking at how banking and finance will look for women in future, and also the societal construct which undermines the role of women in economics. Today, to discuss about this, we have distinguished guests with notable experience in their respective areas. I am delighted to welcome all three of my panelists who are from around the world. Thank you so much for coming. First, we have Mr. Siddharth Bhatta, who is currently serving as the Deputy Director of Research Department in Nepal Rashtra Bank. He graduated from Boston University with esteemed Masters in Economics, and he also has another Masters of Art in Economics from Tribhuvan University. As well, he has bagged multiple gold medal and applauds, and his research interest lies in macroeconomics and international finance. Thank you so much, sir, for coming. Welcome. Next we have Ms. Salaka Joshi, who is currently serving as Gender Lead of South Asia for International Finance Corporation, the private sector focused arm of World Bank. She is a Sevening Scholar and an Aspen Global Leadership Fellow, and serves on the board of Tonic Global and IEF Entrepreneurship. Welcome, ma'am.
Thanks. Hi, Samna. I'm aware that you can't see me, so I'll try to fix the technical difficulty while we're going on, but I'm very much here. It's a pleasure to see you all.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We have Mr. Prem Sangrola, who has more than 20 years of experience as an economist in the Development Research Group, World Bank, Washington, D.C. He has expertise in household survey design, operation, and poverty analysis. He privately worked as statistical officer in Central Bureau of Statistics, Government of Nepal. He did his master's in economic policy management from Columbia University, and he has another master's. He has another master's in economics from Tribhuvan University. Today, I've already told that we're going to discuss on Nepali women in banking and finance. And the goal of discussion is not to find a probable solution or answer, because discussions happen everywhere. Discussion happens around the corner of the streets, around dining tables, and especially around the tea stalls. But all these discussions are always deemed as unimportant because they do not curve towards any probable solutions. And even today, I know we'll have a very insightful and meaningful discussion, but with with our panelists who have expertise in this field and have been working here for decades and decades. And even today, we are not expecting any probable solutions or answers, but we are trying to find a vision that is intact as the solace to so many women who want to make their mark in Nepali banking and finance area. And we also want to embark these kind of important discussions in those dining tables and tea stalls. So, and the questions I'll be asking today is going to be not just my questions, but the collective queries of all the participants and all my teammates. So now without any further delay, I would like to proceed towards the questions. So my first question is pretty long. I hope you guys can, I will repeat it if you guys want me to. Okay, I came across a very amusing research last article done by S&P Global, which was titled #ChangePace. There were more male CEOs named John than female CEOs, and Nepal is no exceptions with this power dynamics in gender line. About 30% of human resources in banking sector are women. But when we look at the upper leadership, we see one or two. One or two. After 81 years since the beginning of an era of banking in Nepal, we got our first ever female CEO, Ms. Anupama Kunjeli of Megabank. So despite having an ample presence of women in banking sector, why are women not able to take executive positions and C-suite positions? What do you think are the reason behind it? I would like Mr. Siddharaj Bhattasar to go first on this.
Okay, am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are very audible.
First of all, thank you very much for organizing this program on a very pertinent issue. I think this issue of financial inclusion and the representativeness of female in banking and financial sector is not only a regional issue, but also a global issue. So thank you very much again for organizing this session. To answer your question, let me first just overview what the situation is globally and regionally. The issue of representativeness in financial sector is a global issue. As we see the data globally, we see that the representativeness of female in executive boards and the CEO and deputy CEO level is quite low. One global consultancy group, Oliver Wyman, in its report, Women in Financial Services in 2020, states that only 6% of the CEOs worldwide in financial firms are women. If we include the vice CEOs, the percentage just reaches to 16%. It shows that it is a global issue, and globally women have fewer representativeness in the executive position in financial services. So if we translate this in terms of Nepal, we also see a similar picture here. As you said, the percentage of female employee in Nepal have crossed 30%. It has just reached 39% now in banking sector, but only few positions have been filled up with females. So I just went over the websites of commercial banks in Nepal this morning, and I found that in board of directors and executive levels, only 9% are female in executive positions and 11% are in board of directors. So this is quite lower compared to other countries and compared to globally. So the main story behind this can be summarized in one of the three main reasons. I think the first reason is that the executive positions in banks and financial institutions requires a long experience in banking field. Since the female representation in banking sector or banking sector employment was quite low a few years ago, females generally do not have long experience to qualify as CEOs or deputy CEOs of banking sector. So I think it is one of the reasons that female do not qualify as CEOs or deputy CEOs. But this reason may not be that much important. The main reason I think is that females do not have access to decent education system. Few years ago, females do not have access to MBAs, EMBAs. That was quite expensive, especially for rural area. So that's why they couldn't join the business programs that make them eligible for banking industry. So this lack of access to decent education, they have restricted the females to join the executive position. Another, I think the most important reason is the mass psychology, patriarchal psychology in Nepalese society, that think that female are generally incapable of joining such positions, such decision-making positions. And that psychology is that can be found in terms of political parties' vision, in terms of the board of directors that appoint CEOs, in terms of the CEOs that appoint the deputy CEOs and other executive levels. But the picture is a little bit positive if we go to the middle level of management, in terms of department chiefs, in terms of the provincial heads. The picture is a little bit positive. Women are getting higher and higher share in terms of employment. So to summarize, I think that the main reason for this low participation or low access to the executive level jobs, mainly because of the lack of decent education system and the patriarchal thinking that restricts them to join the decision-making jobs in industry. Thank you very much again.
Thank you so much for such an elaborative answer, sir. Now I'd like to move on to Mr. Songrola for the, I would like to next move on to Mr. Songrola for the answer. Mr. Songrola, are you here?
Yeah. Hello. Good morning, everyone. Good evening over there.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Samana, for introducing me. And I had a little bit problem with my Zoom. I don't know what happened, but finally I joined with my cell phone. So I think now it is working. Anyway, actually, I am not much aware of the all employment and in banking sector and finance in Nepal, since I live in far away from Nepal and I don't have much data on that. And actually, and Mr. Bhatta has quite explained a lot of things about these employment things. So let me touch upon some of the things like Mr. Bhatta already explained about that, and the basic thing is for all these executives and the high officers for women, there should be the education background for them. So if you look at 2011 census from Nepal, you see that the higher education for women is not for economics, management, and business. The most female who are with higher education, they are especially in administration and education and health, but not for business, not for investment, not for finance. And that is one of the main reasons that, why many females are some sorts of lacking to be executive authority or something like that. So that is one of the main reasons I see. And I also, when I look at the 2011 census, you can see that there is a very high percentage of population, female population, who are in higher education. They study in physics, mathematics, in science, and computer engineering, and all those things. There are very few female students who are working on that. So that is one of the main reasons that might be causing to have very few people in executive order. But at the same time, there are other things. For example, if you when anyway, if you are in the banking system, if you are in the bank somewhere as an officer, then you need to grow. So to grow from there, you need some sorts of skills, and those skills are with female candidates as well. But there are some socioeconomic factors. For example, networking. Uh, for male, they can do networking after office hour, but female, they cannot do that because there are a lot of other social barriers, and they cannot stay longer in office and do socialize, because that I don't need to say why they cannot stay longer there. So it is quite obvious, and since you are there, you guys knows better than me. So I don't need to tell about that. At the same time, I can tell other thing that there should be some other organizational policy to promote to female candidates, and still this deeply rooted gender issues and other social cause is primarily hampering to grow these female candidates to the upper level. So at the same time, if you look at, for example, there are quota systems in Nepal. We saw that and still in constitutional, they have some rights over there. But those quota systems, I don't know how they are functioning in the banking system, in financing, but we see they are working little bit in politics, in government administrative jobs, but I don't know in banking how those quota systems are implementing. I don't know about that, but this quota system is not enough. Right? There are other things that these organizations should implement. So for now, I just stop here.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Both of our panelists very importantly highlighted the aspect of societal construct that works as a barrier for so many women to actually take that positions. Ms. Salaka Joshi, I want to add a follow-up question to that and ask you a question. Do you think that notion and the concept of female CEOs are not yet normalized? I want you to answer both of the questions that I asked. Ms. Joshi, are you here?
Yeah, and
Yes.
thanks for asking me the easy question. Thanks so much for having me here. I think both my fellow panelists have already spoken quite a bit to education and the lack of representation by women in STEM and in certain careers. I just wanted to add another element to that, because when we're talking about having women leaders, we need to think about what the funnel looks like for recruitment, for retention, and then for promotion, right? So what we often see, even in the banking and financial sector in South Asia, is actually at the recruitment level, it's almost sort of 50-50, right? Men and women, at least based on the companies that we're working with. It's actually the retention level, which is sort of the middle level, that we see a lot of women dropping out. And the reasons behind that, one of the primary reasons behind that is the burden of care, because our sort of sociocultural and patriarchal setups in our countries, women bear an extraordinary burden around elder care, child care. I think the global statistics are women do 3x the amount of unpaid care work as men. And for South Asia, that statistic is 10x. So we're doing 10 times the amount of work. So obviously there is a cost that your career also can pay around this, particularly if you're in a socioeconomic setup where you're not able to afford formal or other options around care, right? So there's a large number of very well qualified and trained and skilled and educated women who drop out in the missing middle. And then at the promotion level, which is what we're talking about in terms of female CEOs, there is also the element of unconscious bias that often comes in. So, a very stereotypical idea about what types of roles or jobs women can and cannot do. We just did a study last year that was looking at the representation of women in venture capital and private equity. not an industry that has very high representation, but we actually found that there's a very strong business case for having more women leading private equity and venture capital funds, because those funds that had greater diversity actually performed up to 20 to 30% better in terms of market performance. So there is actually a very strong case for having more diversity, meaning both men and women at the leadership levels. I wouldn't use words like normalizing. I think it is incumbent on all of us. There are certainly women leaders. There are women leaders for perhaps smaller businesses. For example, there are a lot of women-owned and led SMEs in Nepal. That is also a business. Maybe we're not seeing it reflected as much in the larger formal sectors. And I think for that, there needs to be a lot of work internally within the organizations to help increase the funnel, particularly in the middle level. And we can talk some more about what are some avenues that the private sector can take towards doing that.
Thank you so much, ma'am. You highlighted so importantly the expectation that women have over men. You also highlighted about the unpaid care expenses that women have to take, and in terms of South Asia, it's 10 times bigger, because of course our social construct is built in that way that women are not expected to have any prolonged career. So I would like to add up another question to that. In the institution you're affiliated with, what are some flexible and progressive policies towards women? I would like Ms. Joshi to go first.
I realize I need to stay unmuted. It's just habit to go on mute as soon as I'm done talking. I think for the IFC, the International Finance Corporation, which I work with, there's two elements of how we work on this. We also work with our partners and clients and investments on gender, right? So when we're doing that, we have to walk the talk ourselves as well. So there are very concrete corporate targets around diversity and inclusion. I'll just name one. We have a commitment that the nominee directors that IFC has will be at least 50% female over the next decade. We were at 26%, we've gone up to about 35%, but obviously it's a work in progress. Some of the countries that we work in, including a couple of South Asian countries, there is a legal mandate to have a woman on your board, but we're taking that a bit further and saying actually 50% of all our nominee directors will be women over the next few years. So that's one example. In our recruitment policies as well, we are required to justify having people from both genders. So I work, for example, in the gender team, and when I'm recruiting, I cannot recruit only women. I have to have candidates from both genders. So it's really a very robust understanding of gender. That's a couple. I think more of the work we do is with our sort of clients and investments on supporting them to increase women's employment, women's leadership, and really the business case for gender. But I've already mentioned a couple, so I'll leave some space for my fellow panelists to mention it as well.
Thank you so much for your answer, ma'am. Now I'd like to add something and ask it to Ms. Siddharaj Bhattasar. How, as Nepal Rashtra Bank, as a parents institution for so many banks, is trying to push this women-friendly policies so that the banks can adopt and follow? Mr. Siddharaj Bhattasar, are you here?
Yeah. Thank you once again. Nepal Rashtra Bank, as the regulatory body of the bank and financial institution in Nepal, is just promoting the representativeness of female in bank and financial institution in an ethical way, since it cannot endorse the human resource acquisition plan explicitly, because the bank and financial institutions, they are independent in a sense to acquire human resources. NRB can issue a broad guideline on how to acquire human resources, what participation criteria is to be met. NRB can issue a broad guideline, but up to now, the strict guidelines have not been issued. The constitutional guideline, which ensures the female participation of 33% in the reserved quota is not strictly implemented in the bank and financial institution. But even then, the share of female employees in BFIs is growing. As you see, the share of female employee in bank and financial institution in Nepal has reached 40% as of July 2020. So that is an appreciable increase over the past few years. And regarding the guidelines to recruit manpower by the BFIs, there is no strict guideline up to now. And I think I should answer the second question too, in respect of the Central Bank of Nepal. What are the main provisions to promote female? I break down this is two part. The first is while recruiting human resources, what are the policies? Another one is for promotion and a career development plan. What are the provisions? In recruitment, NRB follows some of the guidelines that are in constitutions. It provides broadly the reservation requirement of 33% for women, which is followed by the central bank. Another is the age limit. The female candidates can fight the open competition of NRB up to 40 years, while it is 35 years for men. Another provision is of the probation period. The probation period is 1 year for male, but it is only 6 months for female. So after joining the Central Bank of Nepal, there are some other provisions. One of them is the eligibility criteria for the promotion. While the male have to wait for at least 5 years to be eligible for promotion, the female should wait only 4 years. So 1 year less for promotion. For fighting the internal competition for promotion, they are eligible in 4 years, while the male have to wait for 5 years. So regarding the leave provisions, while all other leaves are equal between male and female, the post-delivery leave is granted for 98 days, which is paid leave. And this is a legal provision. This is a legal requirement. And regarding few other provisions, one I think is important for female is that the females are generally not transferred outside the valley offices. We have 7 outside valley offices, and females are generally not transferred. So this has attracted a number of females in Central Bank of Nepal, I think so. And other provisions for career development, for instance, the leadership development program, the foreign studies. Currently, there are 2 females who are studying in Australia, and one of our female staff is working as an economic advisor in the International Monetary Fund. So there are opportunities for career growth, opportunities for development for females. I think these are the few provisions in Central Bank.
Thank you so much, sir, for highlighting so many important provisions that Nepal Rastra Bank have been doing as women-friendly policies for women so that they could progress. Because when I heard about the data and the provisions, I feel so happy, because someone who wants to, who aspires to be in the field of banking and finance and economics, this sounds amazing. And I am really, really fortunate that Nepal Rastra Bank have been doing such a beautiful. Now I like to add another. Now I like to go for another question. We're talking about, because we're in pandemic, and pandemic has been very brutal for everyone. It has been very difficult for so many everyone globally, and Nepali businesses have also been suffering, because Nepali business have laid off 22.5% of their workers as a measure to contain the COVID-19. So do you think women staffs are more likely to be laid off from their job? I would like Mr. Sangrola to go first on this.
Thank you, Samana. Again, I am far away from there and I do not have current data, but what I generally see that every natural disaster or any man-made disaster like wars, you can see that there is always the hardest hits to the weakest section of the society. So, like just I mentioned that in this pandemic as well, there is a chance that since women in Nepal and around the world are one of the weakest section of the society, we should accept that, I think, and I accept that. And so in a general or generic sense, I would say that it is they are the one who are the hardest hit by this pandemic. And in this way, there might be uh, uh, many laid off these female, but I don't know exactly what is going on. But at the same time, what I would like to say that because of this pandemic, these female uh, employees have to maintain so many things. When you are at home, for example, when my wife is at home, she has to cook the food. She has to take care of her children. Even if I am there, I don't cook usually, but my wife cooks that. So, uh, so if you are working from home, for example, in pandemic, uh, that is not uh, much workable for women in the setting like Nepal, because you have to maintain so many household other things that you have to work at the same time, and maybe that it that is not much favorable for women. So I expect in Nepal that this pandemic has impacted so much to this section of the society. And I guess because of so many things like maybe during this pandemic they could not perform well because of so many other things, or any other reasons, or any because you are weak in your organization, so you might be hit hard. So I think that way.
Thank you so much, sir. You have mentioned it very clearly that hardest hit always go to the weakest point, and definitely there are some barriers that makes women really a vulnerable group. I would like Miss Joshi to go next on this. Miss Joshi.
Thanks, Namna. I think, I would caution us against thinking in binary terms like weak and strong. I think both genders have their strengths and their weaknesses. I think I would think of it more from a perspective of vulnerability, and certainly women are, I think, more likely to be in vulnerable jobs, informal jobs, or have a perception that that job may not be one of the primary earners. So certainly they are more likely to be affected by job loss in that sense. And there's two aspects to that. There's job loss, there's also income loss, right? So both of those aspects need to be thought through. The other element I would share is around informality of jobs and formal jobs. So such a large proportion of Nepali women are in informal jobs, are working in agriculture, are doing sort of farming related, reasonably low paid jobs. So that's one impact, which is larger economic and business impacts with that section. And the other one is with the private sector. And I think for the private sector, we at IFC are doing quite a bit of work on supporting the private sector to think about how you can enable your employees, both men and women, to be more resilient during and after COVID times, because it's clear that that support and that help is necessary. And so if anyone's interested, I think there's a number of notes that we've put out on the IFC website that are connected to gender and COVID. And if anyone's interested, please go ahead and read them about what the private sector can do to support more gender equality during COVID, particularly around employment, gender-based violence, and some of the areas of greater vulnerability.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Joshi, because you've highlighted so important thing about formal and informal jobs. Because about 75% of women in Nepal are in jobs, but only 18.2% of women are actually in formal jobs or full-time jobs. So that clearly shows how women are laid off in terms of such difficult situations. Thank you so much for your answer. So I'd like to move on to another question, because we're talking about women in finance as in profession, but women in finance in terms of getting financial services is also so important. So I came across a very amusing data that only 17% of women hold ownership in their houses, land, and livestock, which shows the minimum accessibility minimum accessibility and control over the productive assets. Financial institutions do not provide credit services without collateral, which makes it a major challenge for most of the women to access the financial service. So what are the policies and steps the banks and parents institutions are doing to counter it or ease the situation? I would like Mr. Bhatta to go first on this.
Thank you. You're right in saying that women have less access, or they have less ownership of property, and they have less access to the financial services in the country. The data of access to finance also points toward that. If we see the World Bank data, it shows that there is huge gap in the access to financial services between men and women. Even the data from Nepal also shows almost 15 percentage point gap in the access to financial services. While there are less female with having a bank account and male. So some of the reasons for this exclusion in financial access, especially maybe that the financial decisions in the households are mostly concentrated in men. So if we look at the data, only 26% of the households are female headed. So this shows that the financial decisions are largely concentrated. So another reason for lower access to finance may be the property ownership and financial literacy, lack of financial literacy among women, lack of access to loan services, maybe due to the lack of entrepreneurial skills in women. So this has led to a wide or ever increasing disparity over time in the access to financial services. To address this issue, the government of Nepal, as well as the Central Bank of Nepal as the regulatory authority of bank and financial institutions, have brought forward a few policies. I think the most prominent of them, the most prominent policy is promoting the microfinance institutions, especially in the rural area. So if we look the history of microfinance in Nepal, the Central Bank of Nepal has promoted microfinance from the Grameen Bank model in the 1990s up to the microfinance institutions which are currently operating in all the 77 districts of the country with their more than 4,000 branches. So if we look the scenario now, there are few policies at work. The one is microfinance model, which is being implemented by the microfinance institutions. As I told, throughout the country, there are more than 4,000 branches, and they have about 6 million saving members. Most of them are women. Another one is the cooperative model. There are more than 34,000 cooperatives in Nepal, and cooperatives have also a wide branch network all over the country. And the data show that half of the members in cooperatives are women. So the third one are the targeted credit programs introduced by the Central Bank of Nepal. For instance, the Central Bank of Nepal has directed the bank and financial institution to invest at least 5% of their loan to deprived sector, which is mostly enjoyed by the deprived sector women. Another one is the concessional loan program. The concessional loan program ensures the credit to women entrepreneurs which have no collateral. This is collateralless lending based on group guarantee. So it ensures the lending to the women who do not have property at 5% interest rate. The rest of the interest rate is subsidized by the government of Nepal. So besides this, there are other few policies. For instance, the foreign funded program model. There are NGOs and INGOs which are involved in expanding the access to finance for women. There are other programs, wholesale lending program. For instance, you might have heard the Rural Self-Reliance Fund, which provides wholesale lending to cooperatives and microfinance institutions, and especially the foreign funded program such as NGOs. Saksham NGO is working actively in Nepal, and there are other NGOs and other programs that mainly work in expanding the access of women. So to summarize, I think that the microfinance model, which covers almost 6 million females in Nepal, and the cooperative model, which also covers a lot of women in network and which provide loan without collateral. They provide loan on group guarantee. I think this is the most prominent policy to expand the access.
Thank you, Mr. Bhatta. You have highlighted the points of subsidies and microfinance, and definitely they are helping the rural and the grassroots level women. I would like to request Mr. Sangrola to go second on this question, go next on this question.
Thank you, Samana, and thank you for highlighting these progress by microfinance and other things. Thank you, Bhattaji. Let me touch upon small things that you mentioned in the beginning, that about 17% of, only 17% of female have the home or land or property ownership. I would like to go and request you guys to look at behind the average. This 17% or 18%, let us say 20%, is just tip of the iceberg. So if you look at the 2011 census again, because I had a chance to look at that, and I see that 18 districts, which are all are from western part of Nepal, they have less than 5% ownership of these things, less than 5%. I am just trying to insist on that, less than 5%. Can you imagine? So if you look at behind the average, then these things are so disturbing. So even if the government is for property and ownership and all those things, it is not working well in many aspects. And let me add another thing, that there are some lacking in policies. For example, if I have one son and one daughter, I can give my property equally to both of them. But what about my wife? In general, what happens that I am the sole owner of the property, but I'm giving to my son and daughter, but not my wife. So there is a missing concept of joint ownership. So so there should be some sorts of joint ownership things, and that will drastically improve this axis of the ownership, and also that will help to have access on these financing things, because you, since you are the owner, you are the joint owner, then you can have more access on all these financial things. That part is very important. And another thing is, I would like to just touch on microfinance. Is the concept of microfinance is a social business, not the profit-oriented business. But I don't know how much profit is making by microfinance bank, but if I look at the other bank, not the Rashtra Bank, because Rashtra Bank is the central bank of Nepal. So but other commercial bank, they have the most highly paid CEOs in Nepal compared to any other organization. So I don't know microfinance has the same thing, but uh, we should focus that the microfinance is just for the social business, not for the profit-making business. You need some profit. Maybe Mohammad Yunus was, when he was introducing Grameen Bank in Bangladesh, he was talking about this social business, and he was talking that these banks or this Grameen Bank should not have more than 10% profit. So anyone who get the microfinance loan, they should have very low interest on that. So that the people or the people who don't have all those access, they can get the very reasonable rate of interest so that they can do their business. That's what I would add on this.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sangrola. Both of our panelists have added how microfinance is there to actually help the rural areas, and definitely. And also, Mr. Sangrola added how joint ownership can be a new concept which can actually help the problems of ownership in terms of giving women accessibility to finance. Now, I would like request Ms. Joshi to add up some insight on this question as well.
Thanks so much. I think my fellow panelists put it really, really well. Those were some wonderful insights, and I agree with them. To me, the answer is women need both services that are financial and non-financial, but also really solutions from financial institutions. And these solutions would have to run the gamut from management training for women entrepreneurs, combining credit and insurance products, better access to export markets, to trade finance, business to business digital platforms, legal services, networking and mentoring opportunities. There's a whole gamut, I think, of services that financial institutions can and should provide, because when they offer these services, they actually go on to benefit all their customers, right? It's not just women. I think there's a very strong business case to be made for deepening expertise for financial institutions on all of these axes, right? So our experience in terms of working with banks as IFC, we've seen that financial institutions that have very specific customer strategies for women, they actually experience higher portfolio returns. So they have greater market share growth, they have higher deposit growth, they have cross-sell ratios in the segment, just better asset quality in like SMEs, for example. So I'm saying all of this to emphasize that there is a really strong incentive for financial institutions to look at this customer segmentation and deepen the work there. I'll mention an example of how we are doing this. We have a program called Banking on Women. And so our program, basically we invest or mobilize investment that is catalyzing financial services for women-owned SMEs in emerging markets like Nepal, right? So we're basically working with banks to then on-lend to women. And I think our business right now is about at 2.5 US billion. This is a significant amount of capital that is earmarked for loans to women-owned SMEs through local financial intermediaries. And I'm mentioning this example to say that's the scale of the market share that we're talking about. So when we're looking at such a strong business opportunity, the hope is that that more financial intermediaries will actually take on that business opportunity, so that more women will then have access to credit, to loans, to blended finance, to entrepreneurial finance, and to really eventually access to assets using some of the solutions that both my fellow panelists also mentioned.
So much, Ms. Joshi. Ms. Joshi beautifully highlighted how building customer segmentation, which prioritizes women, is actually not for just women, but actually they are profitable. So I think bank needs to look into that space as well. So I'd like to move on to my last question. Could you please speak on women's participation in commercial bank, cooperatives, development bank, etc.? How do you describe the participation trend? Is it gradually increasing? escalating or stagnant? And also, I would like to add another question to that. What do you think is the future of banking will look like, and what will be the projection of women will be in there? I would like Mr. Sangrola to go first on this.
This is very hard question for me because I if it is but let me just think in general that when we talk about the investment, it is a uh, it is a big decision to start any investment. It's a big investment because it's a big thing to start, and you have a big decision on this. So, but at the same time, what I have seen that hopefully in future compared to now, the women will be coming more in this area to invest a lot of new uh, demands of the society so that they can move further. For example, uh, because I see that some of the basic ingredients of those investment quality with women entrepreneurship, because they are much more, I'm not saying that men are not, but women are also very cautious to invest what is important or what is not, or how or why I should invest on this or not. So they do analyze a lot of things and before they invest. They are very, if they enter to the business or investment, they are very serious entrepreneurs. I can imagine. So they they have they have such kind of instinct that they always go on detail and think twice or thrice and start those things. So that is, but at the same time, men maybe may not think that much on that. Okay, this is let us go or like that. So there are differences. So in this way, the future of investment is rising. And if you look at Fortune 500 in US and any others in around the world, you see that women are rising. And just you see yesterday there was a Citibank news that there was a woman CEO hired by the Citibank just yesterday. And there are many other things that women are driving as a very powerful source of the economy so that they can generate income and employment. Actually, countries like ours, Nepal, we need more employment. So to have more employment, you should have more industries, more business, more formal and informal type of investment over there, so that you can increase, you can escalate all those employment things. So I see a big picture, and since women are moving and you know that if I look at the higher education, uh, in the recent ratio, the women in higher education, they are very close to male students. So it is moving slowly, but it is also, I can see in maybe 10 years they are one of the major driving force of economy. I can see that way.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sangrola, for your answer. I would like to move on to Ms. Joshi for the answer.
Sure. I think if I had a crystal ball and I was looking out at the future of finance, I'd like to see three trends deepen. One is one is loans to women-owned SMEs. We've all talked about it. We have IFC has 4 years of data saying that NPL ratios for loans to women-led SMEs are actually consistently lower than NPLs for total SME loan portfolios. So I'd love to see more capital flowing to women-owned SMEs, to women entrepreneurs, more types of support going there. And I think that that's a business opportunity that is being increasingly understood, increasingly, not just is there a very strong demand for it, but the supply will also is matching up to the demand now. So that's one trend that I think will be great to see more of in the future. The second one is digital finance. I think everything's become digital now, as we're all in sort of lockdown life. And I think the set of solutions around digital finance will also deepen. And some of the access challenges that we've been talking about through this discussion will actually get addressed and solved through digital finance. Of course, we will also have to look at access to mobile phones, internet, telephony, those things, which is also a gendered question. So leaving that aside, from a product standpoint, I think digital finance, there's a lot of scope for us to build in very strong products for women through that. And then the third, which is connected to the other two, is actually the creation of capital markets innovation. So how do we crowd in more investors to finance women? This is an important thing, right? So that's why IFC has been working to design, structure, and launch, for example, the first gender bond with a client in a key market, right? So we're looking at what are newer instruments that we can use to finance some of these opportunities around women-led small and medium enterprises. So I would say those are three trends that I would like to see deepening in the future of finance, and that will be. I think the time is right for the business case for gender in all of these three platforms to go deeper.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Now, lastly, I want Mr. Bhatta to go.
Thank you. I would again like to start with a global context in this case. While globally, if we look over the regions, we see that Europe and North America are quite ahead in terms of female employee in financial sector. Asia and the Pacific is quite lagging behind. If we see the data, we can see the disparity even in terms of the regulators such as the central bank. So according to a report which compares the gender balance index across countries in central bank, it says that out of the 173 central banks globally, only 13 are headed by women, means only 13 have female governors. If we add the female deputy governors, the number rises to 63 out of 173. So even in terms of the employees at working level, the scenario is a little bit more positive for North America and Europe. The gender balance index for Europe, 38%, followed it by North America, which is 36%. Such index for Asia is quite low, which is just 9%. It shows that even in central bank, the share of female employees or the gender balance is quite low in Asia. So if we look the Central Bank of Nepal in this respective, we have a little bit positive picture. Around 22% of the employee are female in Central Bank of Nepal. In terms of level, there are more female employees at the lower level, while there are less, which is quite obvious in respect of our socioeconomic status of the country. So while we go for the bank and financial institutions, the participation of the female employees, it's quite an increasing trend. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, the female employees in bank and financial institution has reached up to 40%, which is quite an appreciable increase. And I think the same trend is going on the insurance sector. So if we see the data for cooperatives have also huge participation of female employees. So there are 34,000 cooperatives in Nepal. They have almost 40% female directors, and same ratio is for female employees too. So the future for female participation, I think it's quite positive, because for that we can look at the representation of the female in the business schools that are running in the country. We see that more females are taking MBA degree, EMBA degrees, and MBM degrees. This shows that more female are going to join the banking industry and financial industry soon in the future, and they will grab the opportunities. So if we look the financial system of Nepal overallly, the report from the Central Bureau of Statistics, CBS, it shows that almost 47% employee in the financial sector are female. So the financial sector of Nepal includes the central bank, bank and financial institution, insurance industry, and there are some other institutions like employee provident fund, citizen investment trust, and cooperatives. So taken together, there are 47% female employees in the financial industry. And this shows a quite positive picture. And looking at the education the female are taking recently, it shows a quite positive picture for the female participation in banking industry and in the overall financial system.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Bhatta, for your answer. With this question, I'm wrapping up the session. I think everyone, even I learned so much with everything which was discussed today. The major takeaways are that the gender roles and the gender lines are not a very superficial thing, but a very deeply rooted thing, which is very deeply rooted in the patriarchal system and communities like ours. But when we listen to all of these data, it shows that how the position of women will not be in block, will be progressive in the future, and that is the major takeaway and a very wholesome outcome and a vision that came out of this discussion. Thank you so much, all of our panelists who are from different countries. Right now, they are in 3 different countries, and they came together to give this session and made this very insightful and meaningful. I know and I believe all our participants and the people in Facebook Live have learned so much from every one of you. Thank you so much for taking time, taking your amidst your very busy schedule, you have taken your time and shown your commitment and interest in our platform. So I think it will be my loss and my team's loss if I didn't say this, because we are just 10 headstrong ladies who have taken this huge thing of changing the concept of economics, that it is not just a masculine sphere, but women also have stake on this. Women also needs to go on this. So we would always appreciate and would always love your guidance, support in all our endeavors, and we'd love your critical feedbacks, and please come and yell at us if we do something wrong, and please guide us through this process of making this Sonwi institution which will actually make change in economics and its domain. Thank you so much from me and my team, from our bottom of our heart. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Samana, for Thank you, Samana, for
much,
this.
sir. Thank you so much. Yes, sir. Now I would like to hand it over to Ms. Deepa Bhattrai to wrap up the first day of WINEG 2020. I hope everybody in the Zoom as well as FB Live enjoyed this session, because this was very packed up with data and very insightful session. Thank you so much, all our panelists, everyone. Thank you so much. Deepadi, you are mute. Yes.
Okay, never mind. Thank you, Samana. You made me emotional there, but never mind. So with that, we are at the end of our first 2 sessions of WINEG 2020. I thoroughly enjoyed listening to all the panelists, and I hope you all did too. Now, let me take this time to send out the special shout out to people who showed active participation from countries like United States, UK, Canada, Kenya, India, Australia, and Netherlands. We are so humbled by your presence today. It's such a proud moment for us to have participants from all over the world, as well as from our very own places like Pyuthan, Gulmi, Rupandehi, Palpa, Chitwan, Baglung, and many more. Our goal is to reach out to every nooks and corner of the world, and I think this is the very first big step for us. Thank you, everyone, for being so patient with us as we tackle some technical difficulties. Hopefully, we will come more prepared for you all in our next session tomorrow. which are scheduled, next 3 sessions, which are scheduled for tomorrow. Participants can join us through the same Zoom link provided to you in your email, and others can view us online in our Facebook page. We will try to take questions from audience tomorrow if time permits. Please drop any suggestions you have for us in our page. We are open to any constructive criticism. Also, you may drop some encouraging messages if you would like. We surely need that too. So now, before I end the seminar, I would like to ask if any of our panelists or any of the SUNWI member have any final remarks to make before we end the session. Please speak up if you have any.
Okay, can I just speak for 1 minute?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to thank you once again, all your team, for initiating this discussion on a very pertinent issue. I think financial inclusion is one of the most debated topic, one of the most discussed topic recently. And for our country, it is more important, I think. So thanks once again for initiating this program, this session. Thank you, all your team.
Thank you so much. This really means a lot to us. Hopefully we will be able to bring more content out for public to hear from us soon. So thank you again, Mr. Bhatta. That was really amazing. So with this, I will like to end our session for today. Please do join us tomorrow. We really enjoyed having you all here today. Thank you.